Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Audit and Risk Committee meeting of Monday, 21st of July, 2025. Regarding health and safety, I'm looking around the room, and I think everybody here has had a full induction within the last 12 months, so we're good there. As you know, the meeting's going to be live streamed and available on YouTube, and can everyone do the thingy with their mobile phones? It's always a useful reminder. In terms of the opening karakia, I will do that, and Rohario Murray will do the karakia whakamutanga. Tēnā koe for that. Thank you, Rohario. He inoi tātou. He honore he kororia ki te atua, he manga rongo ki te whenua, he whakaaro pai ki ngā tangata katoa, hanga e te atua, he nākau hau ki roto ki tēnā mātou, whakatongia te wairua tapu, hei awhina, hei tohu i a mātou, hei ako hoki e nā mahi mō tēnei rā. Ameni. There are no apologies, there's no public forum, no late items, no confidential business will be transferred into the open except for what we will discuss in confidential and will be transferred into the open and subsequently. No change to the order of business. If we can move to page 8 of our agenda and look at the minutes. Are there any corrections or discussion on those minutes before we approve them? Can I have a mover for the minutes? True and correct record. Moved by Rohario Murray. Seconded by... I wasn't here, sorry. Myself. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. I declare that carried. Any declarations of conflict of interest, colleagues? No, there are being none. We'll move into business. On page 20 is the first paper, and always the first paper at the Audit and Risk Committee, the Health and Safety Wellbeing Quarterly Report for quarter 4. We've got Tracy Benjamin and Jan Peterson who will be speaking to the report. Thank you and welcome this morning. Do you want to just highlight anything for a couple of minutes and then we'll move into questions?
Firstly, I just want to introduce Brad Harris, who is filling in for Tracy Benjamin this morning. And so we'll take the report as read, but we'll certainly open the floor for questions and start with page 1. Brad's just got a few highlights that we can talk to.
Kia ora koutou. Very loud. Sweet. So we're starting off with page 1 OCP data, and I have a few notes here, but more so it was to open up for questions. There were a few previous questions on this page, so just to call out quickly to those. So one of those questions was around how they found out about OCP or referral, and so we've gone away and we've looked at some of the data in the quarterly report. And so a quarter of referrals through actually the PP&C team, and another 1 in 10 are referred by their people leader as well. The rest are through our standard method of communication, which is insider or through various comments and stand-ups and the like. That was the main previous question. I do have a few other comments, but more so I think probably best to open up for questions. Did anyone have questions on that page?
So looking at OCP in particular, how is that promoted through the organisation so that people are aware of it and the reinforcement of that?
Of course. So predominantly it is shared through our internal staff portal, which is Insider, so there's a few pages on it there with a lot more information about it. It's also brought up quite commonly through executive stand-up. We've had that quite recently, and in meetings through people leaders and the PP&C team as well. So there's a lot of word of mouth, but it's also available quite openly to staff through our information.
How could we publicise it better?
Look, I think we do a fairly good job of that already. Our numbers reflect that. I think if there's any, sort of change that is going through the organisation, it's something, one of the first things that we talk about is how we are going to support our people through that change, whether that's through the people leader, but we also have the avenue of external support services, including OCP.
Any further questions, colleagues? Deputy Mayor Schooler and then Rohari Murray.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. I think I recall, and I thought I had read all of this, I recall that we did see something, and to your point, and I actually think it is well known. I've definitely, it feels like a normalised opportunity, if you can call it that. So I'm comfortable on that. I thought we had something that said what was TCC's use of OCP per 100 staff versus other entities. Is that what we have reported before, and do we still report it? Because I thought we were quite high, which it was justified that was because people knew about it and were comfortable using it, but I then haven't seen further information on that.
We did include that in the previous report, and we're fairly comparable on a level of OCP data. In terms of the numbers that we've seen here, they are obviously a little bit more than what we saw in the previous quarter. I can speak to that if you'd like to know more.
No, it was definitely not that. It was definitely that overall that staff do use OCP quite a lot. So if it was in the previous report, why would it not be in this report?
There's a slight change to the layout of this report, and it's been changed up just to give an example of some other data that can be included, but we can make a note and make sure it's included in the next
I'd like to see it, please. That
of
would be
course.
good. Thank you.
Rohari Murray.
Is it working? Okay. Morena tātou, ko te mea tuatahi e mihi ka tika ki a koe, Steve. Councillor Morris, me tō karakia I whakawātea ai tō tātou nei hui, tēnā koe. O tira kia tātou katoa. So just acknowledging Councillor Morris for his opening karakia and setting the pace for our hui today. Thank you. I have 3 questions, and they're a bit of a deep dive into some of the numbers and words that you have on your page. So just bear with me. The first one is around, I'm just looking at your numbers, around personal concerns, 72%, continue to outweigh work concerns, 28%. And also how I note that relationship challenges are a consistent theme across both of those sectors. So my question, first question is, are current counselling resources sufficient given the volume and complexity of personal issues reported?
Look, I think they are. I think they provide a really good service to us, but where we find that cases are a bit more complex, we would also seek to look at other providers, if need be.
And you don't think we're at that point at the moment?
Look, I can't tell you the quantum of other support services we've tapped into in this round, but we definitely do where we need to.
So just a follow-up question on that then. Do we have any benchmarks or indicators that we use to monitor the adequacy of support over time?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, our staff tell us regularly in terms of their experiences and would absolutely come back to us if they were dissatisfied, and that's where we would look to, look to alternative suppliers or more specialist providers.
All right, so wait until the staff members' feedback before any changes might be made.
And I think also our usage would indicate that our services aren't fit for purpose as well, but yeah, we do seek regular feedback from our staff.
Moving on to the question about relationships, do we need to strengthen support offered around relationship issues, which is a persistent theme?
I don't believe so at this point in time. Obviously, we've got OCP, and they are probably the best set to provide that support, but we could certainly look into it further.
If I may, through the chair, one of the relationships that came up in the last 12 months through our pulsing data was the relationship between parent and child, that a lot of young parents weren't getting sleep, that was the challenge. So what we did was we brought in a sleep specialist to talk to staff to say, hey, are you having trouble getting sleep? So sometimes, firstly, the term relationship can vary, and then secondly, for a lot of staff, it's about identifying something that's valuable to them. We can do one-to-one support, but one-to-many probably has to be targeted and thought through.
Thanks, Alistair. I did see that sleep come up somewhere in the report as well. Just bear with me, a couple more questions. So I'm just moving on to, still in this space, redundancy. I see underwork-related concerns, career and redundancy restructure have shown an upward trend. My question is, what specific mitigation and communication strategies are in place to support staff affected by the ongoing redundancy and restructure? And I do note that we've just finished talking about communication, but it's a bit of a specific and significant event for the organisation.
Of course. So that number there and that increase coincides with the announcement of Reset Phase 1, or at least the consultation documents in April. So you'll see the spike in numbers there. That is obviously quite a major impact to our organisation, has a significant impact on our people. Currently, one of the ways, and it comes back to communication again. So when we are having executive stand-ups or announcements in the organisation through emails and the likes about the reset, OCP is always in the communications there. It's been so quite regularly. Furthermore, back to that data around the referrals, 25% being PP&C, so that data supports that our PP&C team, the people that are involved with those meetings, are obviously bringing it to the forefront and having a conversation with the employees impacted by it.
Kapai, thank you. And, that's it. Thank you. That's been very helpful.
Awesome, thank you. Any further questions, colleagues? There being none, can I ask for a mover of the recommendation to receive the report? Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Jen Schooler. Any discussion? Councillor Schooler.
Yes, I just felt that it's quite a lot to take in. We're not experts. I think we are asking questions. I would like in the executive summary just to say this is the quarterly report. Management are not needing to bring anything specific to the table, or they would like you to note particularly, but something we are on an executive summary. What we want to be able to do is read it. If we read the whole report, that's great, but that is the summary of what we are seeing. And so a management view, we respect your view, you're the experts, and I would like to see that in the executive summary going forward, please.
There's no problem, we can do that.
And you did ask for feedback, so I thought that was
great.
okay to do.
If I were to offer it for this report, probably one of the big things to highlight is on the due diligence page 3, there is obviously some conversation around the reform of the Health and Safety at Work Act. So the intent behind that is to bring that to your attention. Obviously, it's quite important given the influence that you have over the organisation that you understand that those changes are coming. So that's why we put that in there, and it's probably one of the big parts of this report that we would like to raise to your attention.
And I guess that, are we comfortable in this conversation that we've had enough discussion on that? I didn't take that as I probably spent more time on your dashboard because it wasn't highlighted.
In terms of further discussion, Rohari or Murray?
I had some questions on page 2. I was wondering if you were going to summarise something and take us there, or if that's it.
Yep, we can do that. Let's flex. Yeah, we can do that.
Of course. What was your question on page 2?
So I was just looking at the top 3 categories here around event categories, so assault or antisocial behaviour, hit by moving object, which I was just, be great to have an understanding on what that means, because those numbers have increased quite a lot since the last quarter, and falls, trips and slips. So I was just looking at those high-risk areas, and from memory, from the last time this was presented, I believe it was noted that a significant number of these incidents occur in the library spaces, and that training and some environmental adjustments had taken place or were going to take place. And so what I'm interested in now is whether those interventions have had any measurable impact, and are we seeing any shifts in incident patterns or staff experiences since those steps were implemented?
Just looking at the data there between this quarter and the previous quarter, it would appear that we're still relatively within the same amount. So I would say likely we haven't seen a lot of improvement in that area. A drop of 49 to 41 isn't substantial. It is a place we still continue to work on with the library team quite closely, but I don't have any specific information about the impact of that.
Okay, thank you. We might bring that up again at the next meeting. Not sure.
Thank you. And just in regard to the Deputy Mayor's point around changes to the Health and Safety at Work Act, would you give us a couple of minutes overview just in terms of what that means for this organisation?
Of course. So at this stage, it's just proposed. Earlier in the year, in April, MBIE released information on what those changes or the intended goals or targets of that reform was. A key part of it was providing clarity around responsibilities within the Act. There was also some points specifically around how the landowner and their responsibility over risks and hazards. So that's quite relevant to us. We have a lot of events in our spaces, so it will have implications for our organisation. At this point in time, we're just monitoring it, but it's important that we keep an eye on it. We'll keep bringing it to your attention. The other element of it is around a focus on critical risk. That's quite prevalent in the comments released by the Commissioner, and so that's an area we're already quite focused on. As you can see, the last page of this report is one of our 13 critical risks at TCC.
So just, I guess in response to that, it would be good, can we have that further up in the paper and noted, obviously, for next time? And I think just, I did read the clarifying governance and operational roles, but didn't put it in the context that you've now provided. So just a timeline on when that might be happening and how it's happening would be useful, please.
Of course, we don't have a set timeline at the moment. For next time, of course. Yep.
Okay, any further discussion? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. That's unanimous. Declare that carried. Let's now move to 9.2, which is on page 26 of our agenda. Thank you, staff. Which relates to the action schedule. And colleagues, are there any questions regarding the action schedule or the status of those actions?
Just closed, right?
Sorry?
We're just looking at closed.
Closed or pending? Anything at all? Do I have a mover for the resolution that we accept the action schedule?
I did have a comment, may I?
Go.
So
Yeah,
just,
go for it.
just in terms of the action schedule, because sorry, and I was reading the delivery committee one at the same time on the weekend, so I'm just making sure my questions are for that one, not this one. But just a compliment to on the status update, we've got a stellar pathway for how it was resolved, because that's not happening on the delivery committee, for example. But this is really useful because it then means we can, when there's quite a lot to track, and I think it is worth noting that before we had action schedules, 14 actions just sort of sat in the ether. So it's a very good resource for, I think, all of us and probably people that we are viewing these. But just a compliment to say that the way the action when it's closed, it's actually with the Stellar pathway is very useful. Thank you.
That's been moved by Mayor Drysdale and seconded by Deputy Mayor Schooler. And I just want to echo the Deputy Mayor's comments on that. And I want to thank you for driving the action schedules, because I tell you, with the number of actions that come out of meetings, it's very hard to keep a track of it, and just formalising that process has been great. I really enjoyed it, so thank you. Any further discussion? No, I'll put to the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. I declare that carried. Let's move now to the interim audit results on page 30. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you and good morning. So this is the interim audit results from Audit New Zealand. So Audit New Zealand perform a number of interim audits prior to their year-end audit of the annual report, which takes place in September. This report brings to you anything that they have brought to our attention through those interim reports. I would summarise to say nothing of significant concern at this point. There are a number of items outstanding, the bulk of which will be worked through by audit as part of their next audit processes. So Marin Gabrick is also with me if there are any questions.
Any questions, colleagues? Rohari or Murray?
Morena, Paul. I've got two questions on, I think, the two recommendations? Oh, I'll ask the questions. We'll do the framing. So the first one is around Audit New Zealand identified a missed declaration, and while that didn't result in any related transactions, the point about perceived conflicts is well made, I reckon. And the current approach is 6 monthly review, and management's indicated to move to quarterly if resourcing allows. So I'm interested in whether the missed declaration was due to timing, so timing between review cycles or something else, because in some governance contexts, board that I sit on, it comes up every month. It's just part of the standard agenda for us to look at. So that's the first part of the question, and I'll wait for you to answer that.
To be honest, I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to actually go and check as to whether it was a timing or it was just genuinely missed.
Yeah.
I think it might have just been genuinely missed in terms of that. So, but I can confirm.
All right. Yeah, that helps, because then whether it's a 6 monthly or a quarterly, or because that change will be if it was a timing factor, and so you may not need to do that. My next question is around the issue of the breach of elected members' resource policy. And I see the core issue wasn't whether approval was granted, but that it wasn't documented, which creates a compliance risk, even when the right people were involved. And so I also note that the proposed response is to record approval either through a memo or council minute, depending on the situation. So from an assurance perspective, is there a risk that relying on variable documentation pathways, so either a minute or a memo, could still result in missed records? So would it be more robust to set a default approval format, especially for higher cost items or time-sensitive travel?
Through the chair, so I think this one, what was proposed was just to allow some, I take the point, but some, depending on the actual item involved, as whether it needed to come to council for approval or whether, in most cases, it won't need to come to council for approval and would just be through a memo or not require a formal minute. So that's why it is done that way. What we can do is confirm that everything is done through a memo process, and where required would come for a council minute.
Yeah, that sounds like a good approach. Thanks, Paul.
Mayor Drysdale.
Thank you for that. I'm just interested in how, what is the process for these types of things? For example, this paragraph 12, I noticed like it was only my trip to China was only picked up because I think Jen asked me the question whether that had been approved, and I asked the question whether it had, and almost slipped through the cracks. So obviously, we've got a problem, I guess, to solve here. How we ensure that we do follow our policies and stay and make sure we do pick up these things. Is that our responsibility? Is it the organisation's responsibility?
Yeah.
But what processes have we got in place to make sure that we do this better in the future?
Yeah, so it is the organisation's responsibility to actually ensure that those processes are well communicated and followed up. Audit will only ever take a high-level random approach effectively at they won't look at every transaction, so they won't pick up everything. It is and it's not their responsibility to pick up everything. It's our responsibility to ensure that happens. So, we'll work with democracy to ensure these things are followed through.
Just, I guess that's a little bit woolly and therefore it might not be as specific. So I would have thought, because even local government, any flight that is booked for elected members, there should be some documentation that says why it should be booked, and then there should be a policy that, yes, that's the authorisation we need. So it would be good to actually see the couple of pages of policy, please, so that we can we action that, please, that we do, we see the documented policy in regard the organisation paying for any events, travel that are undertaken by elected members, please.
Yep, absolutely can do that. And really just to reflect on this as well, this one focuses on elected members in this case, the same as applicable across the organisation in terms of communicating and following up those policies. So.
Yeah, it's a good point, and like I know with Marty, I see all his travel come over my desk that I sign off. So I think we just need to be aware of that in the elected member space, that we are, like, obviously we've got a process in place there that works. So we effectively do the same thing, and Marty will probably know better as to where that's picked up.
Yeah, that's correct. There should be, there are systems in place, there are policies in place as well. Occasionally they might not get followed, and so I guess we're dealing with a situation here where that was the case. So I'm just trying to recall, the policy for elected members' travel doesn't necessarily always need a council resolution as such.
But the China one did, and that's what I had.
Right, okay. Yeah.
That's correct, which is why we'll make sure that the minimum standard is effectively that it's approved effectively, and where required, will be to a council resolution.
Weta. Okay, it's just me. I can.
Say something and you say.
No, I haven't overwritten it. No, it's still. I think we've got a bit of a I can repeat your question if you like,
So
Councillor
my
Schooler.
question is, we also just need to know, so for example, in this case,
Yep.
when I had read in the policy that overseas travel has to be approved of the mayor at council, we just need to know where do you go to say, yes, that's happened. So if you repeat that, Steve, so that can be picked up.
Okay, so the question from the Deputy Mayor, apologies, people listening online have had a bit of a technical hitch. The question from the Deputy Mayor is, where do we go to ensure that the policy is followed, and where's the register? Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Excellent. So
Yeah, all those matters should be managed by Democracy Services. So that's the conduit. Yeah.
I just need to know where to go and say, yep, I can see that that's been approved.
Yes.
I do notice that
Yeah, there should be a register as well, so it's just a matter of understanding where that is.
Any further questions, colleagues, of the report? Can I please have a mover for the reports? Moved by Rohario Murray, seconded by the Mayor. Do you wish to speak to it, Rohario? No? Any further speakers? The only thing I'd draw our attention to is the action. So we're going to look at, we'll have circulated both the elected members' expenses and travel policy, but also have a view over how it applies to staff as well in terms of the action schedule. Okay, no further speakers. I will put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no. I declare that carried. Just in terms of the recording, because only one microphone is presently active, are we able, in terms of the flow of the meeting, are we able to put up the recording of the meeting, even if we can't hear from people? The recording will pick up the mic, the external sound.
That's fine.
We've got presenters' microphones working. Can we flog one of those?
Shall we move one of them round to there?
Okay. Well, shall we just press on, and then, because we've got another paper and staff can speak to that because the external microphones are on. If we need to, we might adjourn for a couple of minutes when we get to questions if the microphone situation's not resolved. So let's now move on to page 45 of our agenda, the Lagoima and privacy requests, and Kath Norris will be speaking to that. Do you just want to give us a 1 minute update on the Lagoima and privacy requests, please?
Kia ora, everyone. First of all, my apologies. I've got a number mistake, which Steve pointed out very kindly for me in the annual reports. So it's a 43% increase. I was trying to say it was 140%, slightly off. It's been busy, but not that busy. Yeah. Thank you very much for recording my errors. So as you can see, it has been a busy time for us with a 40% increase. There's not really anything you will have read and had a look at it. So it's probably best if you've got any questions to just hit me with your questions, really.
Okay, I think we're still having, are there any questions, first of all? That would be my question to the team. Okay, we're still having microphone difficulties.
I know, but
Yep.
probably isn't. I had a question.
And that was a question just around, or an observation around comparing the numbers of requests this year and previous years.
I think it's just because we've got a quarterly report due and the annual report, so we could have put the annual report up front, which would have given you those comparisons right up the front, which might have made it easier. Yes.
Even to have the most bullet points.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
And just, is 43% worrying to you?
It's a significant increase, yes. So, and we're thinking about how we support the team with this increase, and we get support from the rest of the organisation. And it's been a really busy year, busier than I've ever seen it before. So we're mindful of that with our resourcing and how we look to other parts of the organisation to help us when those numbers become large. We're a very small team. I have 2 advisors, so yeah, so we just work through the team, the wider team and council when we need to, so that we can manage the requests.
I think the Chief Executive's got a comment, and then I'll move to the Mayor for...
Through the Chair, just to, I think, support what Kath has described, is that it's not necessarily just the numbers, but it's the complexity and the repetitive nature of these, and it does take its toll It's not just a process, because whilst we're dealing with information, we're also dealing with people out there who, I guess, continue to make requests on the organisation in a repetitive manner. And a lot of them are becoming more and more legalistic in nature, and so as part of the changes that we've made to the organisation structure, this group will now report into the General Counsel to be supported by the legal team. Direct access to legal advice.
Would you? Oh.
Thank you for that. So, no, you don't need it. No, it's on.
It's on battery.
Oh, is it on? The red light's not on.
It's working. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I just noticed, for example, November, and you explained that spike. There's another sort of spike through February, March, but then if you look at April, May, June, there is an increase, but it's not huge, compared to other years, compared to some of those spikes. So is that sort of, has it settled down in the last few months? And notwithstanding that, I noticed the time to complete these, I'm sure that's around that complexity, etc., has increased quite significantly, but the requests, are they settling down?
It can often depend what's actually going on in council, what happens at meetings. So if there's something that the public has a keen interest in, because of the discussions that have been held around this table, that can obviously impact on demand. I think there's traditionally quieter months, but I think Marty's point around the complexity of them, there may be fewer, but actually they're taking longer to do, which is quite a challenge as well. And the volume of in time, because of the numbers of documents that we're having to review for some of these requests, I think is so it's volume versus complexity sometimes.
Can we have that tracked, like the total hours spent? I think, it's obviously you can probably figure it out from the average hours by the number of complaints, but I think that would be a really useful metric as a council to show the cost to our ratepayers, of these requests.
We're starting to track that. So for this, you'll start to see those numbers in our next reporting. So we're working on trying to get better at tracking that. We've probably not been as good as we should have, because there's significant hours with some of this work. So as part of our reporting, we'll start to record the hours. So you'll see that in future reports.
That would be much appreciated. Maybe we'll get that on the non-core list from government. And,
Turn that off.
Oh, kia ora. Kia ora. Just bouncing off the conversation that's been had already. So you mentioned complexity, but there's fewer complex ones to address. But then it's volume versus complexity. But then there are some of the common requests that come in. So I've got two questions really. Are we looking at any proactive release on any of these documents where there are a lot of requests and it may actually save staff time? And the second part of it is, I know that you're going back and looking at the total hours. At what point will it be actually we need to get more staffing in the team to help to respond to these requests?
With regards to your first question, yes, if we start to see a increase around certain subject or topics, we absolutely go to the teams and say, let's try and get as much of this on our website as we possibly can. Anything that's of public interest is published, so all our leguim, as you can see, you can search by topic, so people can see previous responses, which will often have a lot of documentation attached to them as well. And yes, we do flag when there's kind of common themes that are occurring, and we work with the teams to see what we can do to be able to proactively publish information. I think we're getting better at that. In the past, possibly we haven't, particularly around projects, our bigger projects, making sure that the web pages are up to date and we're adding information so that the community can actually see what's happening. And that's from, inception of projects right through, all the stakeholder communications and reports that go along with that. With regards to resourcing, I think that Marty's indicator, or the Chief Executive, has indicated that we'll be moving through to legal. So I think there'll be an opportunity there to think about our resourcing and what we actually need and how we can work closer with that group, which should, really help us out.
Thank you. A question from the Deputy Mayor. Can we I'll pass my microphone over to you. Oh, thank you.
I've just got a new one.
I just moved a new unit there. It's not
Doesn't work. No.
It's where I've got my,
Well,
yeah.
it won't work.
It's a brand new unit. Yeah,
Test.
hang on.
Sit here. You don't have to sit in the. We want to see you on camera.
Testing?
Oh,
Yep,
this works.
this one's
Oh,
fine.
fantastic. Thank you. Okay, we've got a roving mic now. That's great. I've got.
We do have a couple of things happening at the moment, so I'm going to go back to him, report to him. He's at home today. I think he'll come in for this, so I'll give you
Okay.
soon.
Thank you. Thank you. And so just, are we using AI? Are we testing AI as a way to look at some efficiencies here? Or sorry, not efficiency is a bad word. A way of making it easier for you.
That's one of the things that the team's looking at to see how we can use AI. I don't have any, we haven't really started to do that, but it's definitely on the agenda for us to look at to see how we can take advantage of AI to help us with some of this work.
So if that is happening, I would be interested, because I think we should be, to me and to the CE, this is something that we definitely heard at the local government conference, that there is, it's not just, we're needing to go up. I can't remember what the word was. That was a level above the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 AI being used. And I think and did talk about New Zealand being behind the 8 ball on that one. So it would be, I think, it's something I have raised before, but I think in this instance, when you are purely accessing documents that we do have in our system, I would have thought we should be utilising AI if we can.
It was a question. Yeah, it was a question. Kath, how do we compare with other councils of a similar size, or the metros, in terms of how we not deal with legumes, but in terms of the volumes and the complexity? How do we compare?
Population base, we're pretty in the target zone. So there's one council that stands out. One of the smaller councils that stands out is having large numbers. But for our population, we're pretty much sitting within the averages. So, yeah, so anyone, I think, there's kind of Auckland, Christchurch, Wellington. I think we might be 4th, it's around. And there's Tasman, which is a large number of requests.
Any further questions, colleagues? There being none, I'd like to call for a mover of the report, receiving the report. Moved by the Mayor, seconded by Rohario Murray. Any discussion? Mayor.
Just really a comment. I think, as discussed around actually tracking those hours, understanding what this cost is to us, I think would be really useful to our organisation, because it's a balancing act. And while I very much encourage, this is an information source of our people and a way to get information, I think we need to be cognizant of what that actually costs us as an organisation, and ultimately the ratepayer to provide that service. And that is something that we do need to understand, so that requests are put in when they're important, and not I guess a waste of time for councils. So I think that's something that would be good, and very encouraging though that this is an important mechanism in order to get information out. But if we can proactively release information, that's also a positive, and it may actually become a cost-saving policy, I guess, if we do that. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Schooler.
Thank you, Chair. And I think just following up from the Mayor's, particularly the last comments, I think what we also need to do, and I would suggest that the team and the legal team, if there are things that are coming up because we're not being transparent enough, we need to take a little bit of that ourselves. It would be interesting when we have a moment to look and say, are there legoimas we could have avoided by being a little bit more transparent with information up front, and so we actually need to be proactive as well. I agree that it's a cost to the people in terms of this, but we are answering requirements or requests for information. But I think let's also say, okay, let's think about ourselves. And I would be very happy, and I hopefully speak for the team, if there are things that the team dealing with this think maybe it would have been better if this had been declared up front to avoid the legoima in the process. Then let's also make sure we're looking at ourselves and our processes. As the Mayor said, we are wanting to be transparent. Let's question ourselves. Are we being transparent enough? Are there things we can do better?
Thank you. No, that was good discussion. Team, any further comments? No, I'll then put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. I declare that carried. That's the end of the public agenda because there are no late items. What we're going to do is we're going to have a break